The choice of phones as a prime target for the London rioters was evidence of the hold these items have over all of us. And at the heart of their allure is the idea of continuous obsolescence, the perpetual, never-ending upgrade, first dreamt up by General Motors over 50 years ago. And the man who perfected it for contemporary consumerism was Steve Jobs.
An iPod, a phone. Are you getting it?
This huge launch was Jobs introducing the very first iPhone in 2007. Since then, there have been 7 generations, and the pressure to upgrade intensifies with each new launch, making us feel that our existing Apple product is out of date and obsolete. I wanted to know whether those who worked within Apple could explain whether it was great design or this relentless drive for profit that drove each upgrade. Dan Crow came into Apple as one of the chief designers in the late 1990s, working alongside Steve Jobs.
I wonder, Dan, under the aegis of design, whether really what Steve Jobs was creating was an amazing, perfect money-making machine. The idea of the perpetual purchase, the rolling consumption of the upgrade.
Apple got extremely good at iterating and making each step of the product better and better and better. Now, partly that drives upgrade, right? People want the latest and greatest, and I think that's quite interesting. But it's also very much about the technology and about the how can we make something better and better.
But in recent years, has innovation slowed?
So if you look at the latest iPhones, you can make it a little bit faster and a little bit nicer, and you can put gold on the back, and you can put a fingerprint sensor on, which is great. But it isn't actually that different from the generation that came before. I think we're seeing sort of the natural plateauing of the product. It's reached its peak. It's probably about as good as it's going to get.
Apple have perfected the idea of obsolescence first revealed in the 1950s, making us want something a little newer, a little better, a little sooner than is necessary. But there are those who believe that Apple are also guilty of making it difficult for us to keep hold of our existing products, even if we don't want to change them. Back in 2004, the jewel in Apple's crown was the iPod. The silhouette motif of its advertising campaign emphasized the product's universal appeal.
So 1, 2, 3, take my hand and come with me because you look so fine that I really want to make you mine. I say you look so fine that I really want to make you.
But 2 brothers here in New York City started their own campaign, which they called iPod's Dirty Secret, that the batteries didn't last more than 18 months.
Jack,
Casey,
welcome.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah, good to see you. Come on in.
Thanks for your time. Casey, what prompted the campaign?
Well, you know, this is 10 years ago now. I'd just gotten the iPod, and it was $400. So a year later, or a year and a half later, when the battery died, and I wanted to fix it. I wanted my iPod back. I called the Apple 800 number, the Apple Care number, and I explained that my battery was dead.
If the battery, how long is it? How old is it?
About 18 months old.
18 months? Okay, it's past its year, which basically means for, there'll be a charge of $255 plus a mailing fee to send it to us to refurb it, to correct it. But at that price, you might as well go get a new one.
So my brother and I came up with this idea to make a movie where we made this stencil that said iPod's unreplaceable battery lasts only 18 months. And then we spray painted using that stencil on all of those ubiquitous iPod silhouette advertisements that were all over the city. Then we posted that movie online, and it went crazy.
So you got, how many hits were you getting?
Well, it was tough. This is pre-YouTube. But I think we did around 5 million views in a couple of weeks.
And what did Apple do?
Apple didn't really address it. They did shortly thereafter change the policy and enact a battery replacement policy.
But it's built-in obsolescence, isn't it?
It absolutely is built-in obsolescence.
Case's campaign has kicked off an entire movement dedicated to fighting built-in obsolescence. Here in California, a new consumer fightback is now underway. I've come to San Luis Obispo to meet one of the leaders.
Carl? Hi.
Carl Wiens runs a collective called iFixit. They tear apart new technology to work out how to mend it, something they say big companies like Apple actively discourage.
Carl, I've got an iPhone here and the battery is wearing down. I charged it this morning, it's gone down 10% already and it's a year old. Why is it going down so quickly?
The physics of these batteries, they wear out after a finite amount of time. It's a consumable just like the tires in your car. You have to replace the battery in the phone every once in a while.
The real problems with changing the battery on the phone emerged with the iPhone 4.
When they released this phone, they included some new screws that we'd never seen before. So these are 5-pointed star shape screws that we had never seen in all our years of taking electronics apart. Apple invented a brand new screw specifically for this phone to keep people like you and me out. They don't want us in here able to replace our own battery. And I decided that that wasn't okay. And so I reverse engineered their screw and we started making and selling screwdrivers for the iPhone.
So you invented the screwdriver that will now open this phone?
Right. Okay. So let's dive into this one.
Yeah.
So that's the screw. You can see it's pretty tiny.
Yeah.
Once you get inside the phone, there are actually Phillips screws.
Right.
Which continues to show the irony. They're only using these pentalobe screws on the outside to prevent you from getting in.
Right. It's basically like a barbed wire fence, isn't it? To stop you getting in. But then once you're in the phone, you've got recognizable screws that you can deal with.
Right, absolutely. It's just a gateway. They're preventing you from getting inside. Once you're in, it's just like any other phone. It's very easy to work on.
Apple told us that they work hard to make the most beautiful and highest quality products and devices in the world, using state-of-the-art technologies. They say their products last longer, retain more of their value, and are better supported than all other products in their industry. Apple wouldn't be interviewed by me. They suggested we speak to tech analyst Benedict Evans. I wanted to know whether upgrade culture mastered drive to make us spend more.
Do you think the iPhone is improving?
I think we are still seeing really dramatic improvements in what these devices do.
Is that really true? Because I spoke to Dan Crow, who's a designer for Apple, and he said that actually what's happened with the iPhone is that it's kind of plateaued.
So specifically, the new iPhone has a 64-bit chip, which gives roughly double the performance for the same battery life. It has a camera that can record slow-motion video in near darkness. It has a built-in fingerprint reader.
Well, I talked to the people in the queue who were waiting for the 5S, and I asked them why they were buying the 5S, and they didn't say because it's got all these amazing new technological innovations.
But you shouldn't have to know that. As a consumer, you shouldn't have to know why... you know, it's not the consumer's job to know that something is better. It's not the consumer's job to have an opinion on things that they haven't seen.
Could you tell me about the iPod? When the iPod was developed, what was the thinking about having a non-replaceable battery?
If you make a battery removable, you've got to completely redesign the device. You've then got to put a plastic case around the battery, and then you've got to create a plastic socket inside the device, and then you've got to create a removable case that will come off. You've added actually quite a lot of extra just volume to the product. And then you've got to redesign where everything is inside to make room for all of this.
So what you're saying is that there's a trade-off. If the consumer wants a sleek product, they're going to have a battery that's non-replaceable, and that's the deal, and they're choosing that.
Well, I think that's the thing.
Is it not ushering in a kind of disposable culture, the culture of the upgrade that we have today? And it's about relentlessly buying the newest, the quickest, the sleekest, and that is, by its essence, the throwaway culture.
I think that's an argument that says that actually we were a lot better off. We had much lower consumption, we had much slower lives when 80 to 90% of the population were peasants. And the story of humanity's move away from peasantry and a life expectancy of 25 or 30 is in part a story of consumption. It's very hard to separate change and improvement from the improvement in people's lives.
So you think it's right that we have a culture where companies are prepared to upgrade things relentlessly and that we throw these things away?
Well, I don't think that's really the right way of looking at it. Companies are continually struggling to make better products. The reason why I can turn on a TV set and have a reasonable expectation that it will turn on and never fail for the next 15 or 20 years is because companies are continually striving to improve their products and make better ones.
Consumer technology must deliver never-ending improvement to sell to us, which means we've now reached a pinnacle of obsolescence with the mobile device. But as technology expands to every consumer purchase, the need to upgrade will become an inescapable fact of life. The destination of a journey that began back in the 1920s with the humble light bulb.
Manufacturers then had what seemed an impossible dream: to engineer consumer behaviour through planned obsolescence. Today, we live in a world of relentless, continuous spending, not so much because we were manipulated, but because we, the consumer, chose to be part of the project.